So when we got to the reorganization, what we determined to do was to divide our business up into 4 distinct modality groups. General Biomed Group, which the lion's share of all the C departments out there, this is what they do in-house. The Biomed Specialties, there are some departments that do this in-house. There's some that outsources, but it's definitely a group that has a higher level of specialization, which included anesthesia, vents, lasers, and sterilizers. And then because our imaging groups were so vast, we divided it out into 2 separate imaging groups. Imaging 1, which was CT, MR, RNF, and general rad, and imaging group 2, ultrasound, rad-onc, nuke med, and cath lab IR. Then something that good companies do is, or good businesses do, is they actually go find out what their customers want, okay? I think that's a good thing to do. So we went around and we visited with our clinical leaders and asked them some pretty pointed questions, things like, what's the maximum amount of response time that you would still consider excellent service? And we used those responses to design our business, aggregated those throughout the ones that said, well, I want you to park outside my department and wait for me to call, throughout the ones that said, well, I don't care if you show up in a week from now, and aggregated those responses and came up with what we would commit to that we knew would meet our customers' needs. And then we made a commitment to them. We put together these committed response times, and we published these. We put them in a brochure, and we handed them out to all our customers and said, you can count on this. And you look at like the emergency callback and emergency on site, and you might think, well, that's an awful long period of time. And certainly that doesn't apply to our on-site folks where there's a patient on the table issue. They're going to be there in probably 30 seconds. But this was something that we were committing to all of our customers, and so it was like a contract with them. So what is the worst case? That's what we're going to commit that we're going to do. And this is a really good graphic illustration of what that looked like. If you and we did this kind of analysis for every one of our modalities. In this case, it's nuke med. If you look up in the north region, each one of those little ovals is an Aurora facility, and the number within that oval are the number of devices at that facility. So you look at the north region, there's 3 gamma cameras for the entire region. In our old model, would it be economically feasible for me to bring somebody in-house to do nuke med? Absolutely not. But if I break down those regional barriers, if I break down those site barriers, and I create zones, and I optimally position somebody within that zone, now it is economically feasible. Now I can do a real good job of meeting my customers' needs. Did the same thing, like I said, for all modalities. This is in ultrasound, and you can see a similar situation here, where in the north region there aren't a whole lot, but in this instance we created 3 zones for supporting ultrasound. One of the things that was made clear to us, we're going to invest in you, clinical engineering. We're going to give you all these bodies. We want to make sure that you deliver what you promised us, okay? So we recognized very early on that we needed to have a centralized call center because leadership wanted to see metrics. They wanted to make sure that we were fulfilling our commitments. So the only way that we could do that is to have all the calls come into a central location, make sure that every call is time-stamped, and have a mechanism for our guys to report back electronically through what we went with was BlackBerries, and they punch in a code that says, all right, I'm on site. They punch in another code that says the repair is complete. So now we can track response times, we can track turnaround times. Committed to our customers, we would provide them a high level or high quality of expertise, detailed tracking of all service calls, and like I said, we implemented smartphone technology. There's another part of this that is really nice for us. I talked about patient on the table situation. Many of us have been in that situation, and minutes seem like hours. So I get a call from a department manager that says, we had this really bad situation, and we called you guys, and they took like half an hour to show up. Okay, well, let me follow up on that and see what actually happens. So we record all of our calls, and I can determine when the call came in, when my guy showed up on site, and I went and met with the manager, showed them the report, said, this is what actually happened. Oh, I didn't know you guys could track that stuff. So, I mean, it takes care of a lot of that, and it's helpful to us as well. I talked about having a consistent scope of service, and this was a list of gray list items. You can see with this kind of a model where you've got people that, you know, for the general biomed stuff, we have people on site that stay at that site. But for the specialty stuff, we have people that travel around, okay? So this model doesn't really work if up here you support these devices, but down here you don't. So we met with our friends over in facilities and did some horse trading with them and said, you know, we'll take care of this stuff if you take care of this stuff, and eventually came to agreement with that and developed a consistent scope of service. We did this initially. This is an ongoing process. Okay, there's always gray things that fall into a gray area that we have to go back to the table with them and negotiate. Where does it make sense to take first call on this stuff? And we do the same thing with our IS partners.